Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkava, joined as always by the lovely Deplorable Knitter.
Hello, everyone. This week, Ann and I have both been knitting. Can you actually believe it?
I'm not
I
sure.
can't believe it. Nope. Do you want to show us yours first, Ann?
Oh, sure. So I said last week that I am working on commission for a Nightwing pattern. So before I show the hat, because it's blue on black, so it doesn't show very well. Not great camera planning, but it will look good in person. Anyway, so it only took me 4 birds to get there. So anyways, I showed you the other 2 last week, and that one, when I make these, I always have to make one that's like, doesn't make any sense. That one is definitely a bat. And I didn't mean it to be, but definitely a bat.
But now you have a pattern for bat if you do need one ever. So you got that going for you.
There you go. There you go. I could switch that up to little pointed Batman like so fast. Which makes sense because Nightwing, Batman universe, but definitely a bird. Anyways, so last one, little chunky headed guy, which is what the original logo looks like. So
that's the one that you went with?
That's the one I went with.
Cool.
See, bird, not bad. But anyways, and here, because I was knitting on it before, and there we go. Anyways, it looks like what I just showed you, except it's blue on black. I'll try to get a nice picture once I'm done. Maybe you can impose it. But yeah, it's knit with, let's see, it's a single ply merino knit picks that I got a lot of it before knit picks kind of angered me. So, which is a pity because I love the wool. And the needles, so for a project a while back, I really like the Addi Turbo needles, that good German steel, makes a knitting needle like nobody's business. But so it looks like Turbo is more marketed to America, but Brockish, I believe, is more international. So the needle sizes are a little different. That it says it's a 2, but really, if you look at the millimeter, it's different from the 2 that they would have in America. So it's really more of a 2.5.
Oh.
And I got these specifically for a project because, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not sure which needle size to use. Why not get a 2.5? Well, I don't have a 2.5. Well, I have to go international sizes too.
Cool.
Who wants a 2.5? Just get a 3. But anyways,
but
so
using the needle. The perfectionist has a 2.5 because that's how she rolls.
Well, when I knit, the hats that I knit with fingering weight, and it's just a micro difference with the fingering yarns that even, this is a fingering weight, but this is a slightly large fingering weight, and this is slightly a small fingering weight, and it's not something I would normally care about, but I got the dang 2.5, and I'm going to use it. So
that's cool.
Anyways, so yeah, I'm having fun. It's nice yarn. It's a fun project. Yeah, it's actually going pretty well. So yeah, that's basically all I've been knitting, which is weird.
Well, I have knit a lot, but I don't have much to show for it. I hate when that happens, but I'll show this one. I'm actually going to take it out, but this is first. This pattern is coming out on Saturday, so when you're watching it, you, my friends, will be able to get your very own Trump 1 pattern. And if you don't knit and you watch us, you could also get a Trump 1 hat if you choose to. I'm selling them finished hats as well as the patterns. But you should have seen the nonsense that was going on my Instagram with this hat.
Oh, yeah.
It got tons of views. And I love the people who don't understand how hashtags work. They'll comment on me like, I'm unfollowing you. You don't follow me. You follow a hashtag I use, so therefore you saw my picture. And some woman commented, well, I think I'm going to unfollow. Knitting is my therapy. And my response was, you know that anybody can use a hashtag, so you might be in danger. Somebody could post something you don't like on a different one.
Right.
Like,
well, it's like on Instagram, I follow Weasley Sweater. Okay. Most of the times it's knitting. Sometimes it isn't. I'm not going to like click in and be like, I'm so upset that you put your Weasley twin fan fiction on my Instagram feed. No, I'm like, oh, that's not what I wanted, but okay. And then you flip past it. Like that's
you go on. It's not that big of a deal. And a lot of people are just being straight up mean to me because I had the audacity to say that Trump won. So,
well,
that's something that's happening. But
out there stating opinions. How dare you?
There was one lady who was going nuts about it, and she was like, what about the insurrection on January 6th? And I said, well, what about the riots that happened all last summer? Uh-huh. She's like, well, that was an insurrection and blah, blah. And I said, I watched a woman get beat by a 2x4 outside of her apartment during one of the riots. Is that normal? That's okay. I said, so I just need to know, because she told me I wasn't in reality. So I said, I need to know where your reality ends and mine begins, because I saw it happen. And then she just stopped engaging with me. And then people are reporting it. They're reporting this picture. They're reporting a picture of this hat because I don't even know. Maybe they're reporting it as misinformation. Mm-hmm. For real, people, for real.
Right. Talk about that offensive knitting. But yeah, the insurrection, which no people were armed, and the only person,
and they held the doors open.
They held the doors open, and the only person killed was one of the protesters. Other people who died time of were reported natural causes.
Yeah. No, or but hey, medical
incidents, I guess. But there wasn't not from any protester.
Yeah, and so that has been going on, and I used to not engage with the trolls because why? But then I realized that on Instagram, the more engagement you have on a post, the more people they show it to. So now I talk to them. Right. Because it only benefits me in the end.
Right.
You're driving more people to my picture. Keep complaining about how terrible I am. Go for it.
Yeah, please do. And also, like, this is totally off subject in the middle of our knitting segment, but Michael Knowles did a video. Crowder did a debate with, gonna lose the name, but it's Elliot from the H3H3 podcast, that there was a little tiff between them. Okay. Anyways, I had never heard of this guy before, but apparently millions of subscribers. And Crowder made fun of him because he said, like, wow, you don't even have to think about it. If the medical professionals say it, just do it. And which was hilarious. And they made fun of it and all the applications that you could use that for. So he invited him to be on his show for like an actual debate. And then it wasn't an actual debate, that he switched it, and it was some other guy who was talking to him. So Crowder made fun of him, and that was that. You know, that you can't even face me and talk when I asked you, not anyone else, you on my show, and you accepted, and you thought you were going to pull a fast one. Anyway, so Michael Knowles did a video about it, and he's like, well, this is why you don't engage with, you know, the liberals or people from the other side. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, I'm like, that is why you will always preach to the choir, and Crowder will go out and change minds. Like, yeah, you know, so this guy, the guy that Crowder was debating, was not engaging in good faith. So the debate didn't work out, but it was illustrative of him not wanting a debate, not wanting to actually discuss the issues. But Crowder tries, that he goes out and he talks to people. Well, why bother interacting with anybody? Because somebody needs to have the conversation, even if there's going to be mudslung. Like, you need.
Yeah. Like, you can't live in your echo chamber. Mm-hmm. You got to talk to people that don't agree with you, because, you know, I mean, Anna and I are always right, but you never know. We might meet someone who knows something else that we didn't know. And why not talk to people and find out?
Exactly. On the off chance that we are perhaps not as well informed as an issue as somebody else on this planet. Maybe, just maybe, someone needs to be like, hey,
Yeah,
Someone has new information,
exactly.
new insight. Ain't that a Jordan Peterson thing? Assume that the person you were talking to knows something you don't know.
Oh, I haven't heard that, but that's a really good one. It
Mhm.
sounds like something he would say.
Right.
Um,
Anyways,
so
I'm sorry. I interrupted your knitting.
that's okay. I these two things go together, and I talked about you a lot. People had not heard of you. Could you believe it?
Whoa.
People didn't know who you were, and so I was talking about the great and fabulous Pinkava.
Well,
Because
to be fair, I don't get in as much trouble as you. So
it's all right. Because the reason that I had to tell somebody about the fabulous Pinkava is that I was making this hat. And some of you guys who watch the show are going to know what this is. This is the Unsafe Space logo. And just an hour ago, I was recording with Carrie. And so I'm going to be on that show. I'm going to be on Unsafe Space probably next Tuesday. When I know for sure, I'll have a link and I'll send it out so that you guys can see it. But yeah, I was so freaking nervous because, like, you know, they have a large following. A lot of people watch that show. So I was like, oh my gosh. But once I got on, it's just like talking to Anne. It was just totally normal, and she's so nice.
well, and a lot of people joked, and I don't know how much this influenced you specifically, but for me, I remember that Unsafe Space were the people who first broke the Maria Tuscan story, and that they talked about oh, I'm forgetting her name. It's the lady from Skeins Yarn in New Zealand, that they interviewed her for, that people tried to cancel her. So people at the time joked that Unsafe Space was their favorite knitting podcast because they talked about the knitting wars. I mean, they talk about a variety of topics too, but the sort of culture wars thing and talking about knitting and other stuff. So that it's like that was one of the, not like the biggest influence, but when we were like, okay, we should do a show, we should do this, I'm like, well, Unsafe Space is making it work. Like,
yeah.
Like, wait, there is a market for this. Like, and they're not exclusively knitting. They do a lot of other stuff, but they have like a knitting group and they have people. So anyways, yes.
Yeah, but it was interesting to talk to Carrie because she used to be a social justice warrior. So I was telling her about things that were happening to me, and she was, her view on it is a little bit different than maybe some of our regular viewers because we all kind of came from the same viewpoint, whereas she came from a totally different mindset, and so how she sees it is different. But it was fun, and she's super nice. And when I showed her that hat, she was like, oh my gosh, you have to send that to me. So I've got to get it done so that I can mail it to her. I would like to say that I'll have a finished picture to put in this episode, but realistically, I probably won't. So let's just be honest here.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was it. Yeah, it was a big week for me though. Like, and Anne's totally, and like Anne, when I'm done talking to her, we can podcast. Like, I don't know anything. I'll call you. Right. She was on standby all morning waiting. Pins and needles.
Or needles and needles. I was knitting.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that was the big thing that happened this week for me. Oops, sorry. I don't think anything else really. Yeah, the trolls were hanging out on my page, and yeah. Otherwise, it was a pretty uneventful week. Yeah. I've already sold one of those Trump hats, even though it's not actually even done. So
that's I'm winning. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm winning. So that's cool. And my life has been crazy this week. My husband helps build houses sometimes, and the guy has needed a lot of help cleaning. Mm-hmm. So I spent 8 hours cleaning windows the other day. So Anne is once again in charge of politics, and I will just put in my little sunny personality notes as I see fit, but I know nothing. I have opinions, but I don't know anything, so we'll see what happens.
Right. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about this week is Canada, and which like Australia, it's like, oh, Canada is such a nice place. You'd never expect religious freedom to collapse overnight. But I mean, without hyperbole, I mean, it's sincerely, it's a problem. So for those who haven't heard, that they have uncovered a lot of graves of children at former residential schools in Canada. This would be the sort of school, they'd be Catholic schools where they'd send Native kids, and they found all of these graves of the kids out back, and there's been a huge outcry, which is um, it's sort of strange because on one hand we have the wow, all these kids died at the school, but they don't, in these sort of school situations that you look at schooling in the sort of late 1800s onwards, and the sort of foundling schools sort of things, and if you assume that the indigenous schools were under the same sort of structure, that there's no, they have no cause of death for these kids. Okay, there's no specific, it is suspected neglect and abuse, but you don't actually know that, like things like tuberculosis would have been a huge thing. And if living conditions were a little sketch, if sanitation was that, if stuff like that, that would have contributed to it. Like, and conditions in these schools have been complained about in Canada since the 1970s, and the last school was closed in 98. So different timelines for these things. Like, one hand you have this, it's a tragedy that these kids died at these schools. On the other hand, for years, and not just in America, or sorry, not just in Canada, but in America and in England, if you have these sort of old-fashioned boarding school situations, if your kid died of disease at school, he was buried at school. So you have this, it's actually, this is a tragedy, but the tragedy is taken kind of away from the historical context, like fiction.
Right.
You have fictional examples of schools in England, and like Jane Eyre and Nicholas Nickleby, where you have abused kids at school. It's not a foreign concept either for kids of many backgrounds, but when it was brought to attention, like in Dickens' era, people in Dickens' era got angry and fixed it and went for reforms.
Right.
But does that make sense? That what happens to these kids is horrible, but it's specific. Like, it's not something that is unheard of for many groups of people, and it's bad, but they're making it a colonial issue when it's not just a colonial issue. It's a class issue. It's what societies do with children they don't want. Like I said, with the foundling schools in England, that it's a neglect for children. Yeah.
And like you said, it's a horrible thing, but if you're saying that the schools were open for 60, 80, 100 years, and they found 200 bodies, it's also somewhat taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they know that all 200 and whatever kids were killed at one time, or like, do we know if there was a typhoid outbreak or whatever? Right, it's terrible. And yeah, but why didn't people say anything? Is it because they were indigenous? Is that what they're trying to say, that because they were indigenous, they just let it happen?
Right, that is sort of the thing. And look, man, I ain't saying that Catholic schools don't suck, but also I know that, and which is one of the weird things when this came out in Canada, is one of the first things they said is, well, we can't wait till we find out all of the dead kids in America. And I'm like, wait, what? How are we included? But okay, but there is a history, and it's kind of put under the phrase of like cultural genocide, which you don't genocide a culture, you genocide a people. But that they were trying to make the native kids into like correct little Catholic school children and sort of erase their culture, sort of thing. So they're, you know, the neglect and abuse of these kids is playing into that. And I guess I should say the reaction more of this, because like I said, the abuse and neglect of these kids is important and definitely something that, you know, should be addressed. But at the same time, because of this, they canceled Canada Day in a lot of places. And Canada Day, which was already the canceled Dominion Day. So it was already the woke version that they canceled. And they orange paint is the color of justice in Canada. So they had a Black Lives Matter style rally, and they tore down statues of Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. So blame the women, why don't you? That, and the Canadian government has no plan to put the statues back up. Let's see, I wrote down the name of the first prime minister. Sir John A. Macdonald. Sorry, Canada, I don't know the name of your first prime minister off the top of my head. But they took down 2 statues of him because he was considered, you know, the father of these residential schools. And both in Charlottetown and Kingston, which is his hometown, there have been, last I heard, 6 Catholic churches that have been burned down. Innumerable churches burglarized. 2 churches were burned on Dominion Day itself within 2.5 hours of each other, and the police said it was coincidental. And this is from the post-millennial that they were talking about, that they have no arson suspects, but the 2 suspects that they found was of vandalism, and it was 2 white women in yoga pants throwing orange paint on a predominantly Filipino church. That nice. And people are trying to destroy churches that are mainly part of Indigenous communities, and and not even all Catholic churches. That, and then Justin Trudeau, you know, your buddy Blackface, is coming out there, and he's like, well, you know, violence is bad, but it's understandable. And what is?
I don't know. Them getting mad at like Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth and Sir Macdonald there. It's like the nonsense going on here. It's like trying to hold people. Killing people is never okay. Killing kids is never okay. Abuse is never okay.
Right.
But that was a long time ago, and the people now aren't doing this. So you can't just erase your entire culture because people did bad things.
So yeah, we have situations like this where you have had these horrible things happen to people, but because you're erasing the good and the bad, that you're not allowing those lessons to be told or those people to be talked about or understood, except like you can't conceptualize these people in their own historical context and realize what they have done. You must rewrite them so everything is through the context of now.
Right. And that's where we get into trouble. Like all the people who are saying we shouldn't celebrate the 4th of July here because we stole land and whatever. I've heard a lot of rebuttals to that. And a lot of people are saying things like, we didn't steal the land. We came, we fought, and we conquered.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same thing. So we either fought and conquered the land, or we bought it. So, but they're trying to this narrative, this brainwashing narrative that they're trying to push is that we're so bad, and it's the bad white people, and it's the tribes did it to each other. Mm-hmm. They fought each other. They stole land because that's what people did back then. We don't do it now, but even in the 40s, Hitler was doing it. He was trying to steal land from all of Europe. So That's what
Right.
people do with wars and things.
Yeah, I saw it was a little photo compilation this past week, but it was some guy and his family, and they were flipping off Mount Rushmore because they're desecrating the sacred rock, whatever. But his Twitter handle had Lakota in the name, and the Lakotans had taken the Black Hills area from the previous tribe who they killed. And it's like,
Right.
well, this is stolen land. Well, there's a
Well,
lot of that
yeah,
going on everywhere. It's like, well,
we
there was
stole it too.
slavery.
It's not.
Yeah, there was slavery among the natives too. Like this isn't a new concept. And
And it's
also,
not just bad white people doing it to other
right,
races. It's everybody was doing it to everybody. It was a
right.
thing.
And I would also say that a lot of the policies that we had for native groups when we first came in, yeah, some of those policies were not good. But look, it was a war. Like, it was a literal war. We joke cowboy and Indians. Like, there was battles, there were people killed, there were pioneers killed, and there was a lot of really crap government policies, like treaties when it's like, okay, we'll feed you, just let us have your guns, which we should learn from. But there's there's a lot, it wasn't all good, but at the same time, we have to move on. Like, you have to learn and understand and try to take society as a whole and try to, you don't want to erase any of that, and you also don't want to erase any of that by making historical figures monolithic people. That John A. McDonald, his only context was that he may have been in support of these schools or established them, that he did as first prime minister, nothing else he did matter. That was it. That's the only reason. That there's no greater achievements that he had than that. There's no special honor to be given to him because he helped the formation of Canada. No, 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 your only context now is the one note Charlie. Like, that's
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with like wanting information from the Catholic Church. I think that that's a normal thing. When all of the abuse allegations were coming out around the states, people want answers for that. So it's not wrong to want answers or to try to get information, but it's wrong to take it all and look at it from now, because there's stuff that they did to kids. So I've gotten into true crime like really hardcore lately. Like, I've been listening to this one podcast, insane. And I cannot tell you how many times a story starts with something like, oh, they let the 5-year-old walk to a grocery store. And every time I'm going, no, why are you sending your 5-year-old to the grocery store? Like, things change. I don't send my 5-year-old to the grocery store by themselves anymore. Like, but that's how it was in the 70s. And so, yeah, you look at it now and you go, oh my God, what were they thinking? But it's with the benefit of hindsight.
Situations where you have people with limited oversight in charge of vulnerable groups like kids, and we always have problems with that.
So yesterday I finished a book. I've been really into like books and podcasts and stuff the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about Louis Zamperini, who was an Olympian, and then he went and fought in World War II, and he ended up in a prisoner of war camp. And you saying that the people with limited oversight and stuff, the stuff they did to the people in the Japanese prisoner of war camps, I had no idea it was that bad. But that's exactly what was going on in it. Like, there were some good guards, but most of the guards who were in the camps were actually people who weren't really fit for duty. And so they weren't out fighting. So they were in the camps and they resented them, especially like officers and things, because these guys were stuck in the camps. They weren't doing, it was dishonorable for them almost to be there and not fighting and being a kamikaze. And I think that whole not having oversight.
Why would you hire bad people for this job? It's like, well, maybe because they wanted it. No, not necessarily that the people hiring are intentionally finding bad people, or maybe they don't care, but also who looks for these kinds of jobs. I know that certain people are drawn to different jobs and drawn to jobs where you have power and authority over people. And also, I mean, if you are there and you genuinely believe, like if you're genuinely racist, or if you genuinely believe that it is your duty to beat the native out of those kids, then
Well, and
the
that's kind of like the thing in the war camp. Like,
yeah,
they had no qualms about just beating them for information or for any perceived infractions that they had, and it was the whole culture.
right.
And there's some people who maybe started out nicer, but then you are in that culture and it changes you. It's not a good thing, but it happens.
Right. And the Japanese too. I remember it was Fabian Bowers who, if you want to find a really cool person in history in Japanese and American interaction, Fabian Bowers is really cool because he was in Japan right until the last boat basically could leave during World War II. And then he came back. He was MacArthur's personal assistant because his Japanese was so good. And he tells a story, and again, this was basically last minute out. He's walking around with his friend, and that the shortages of fabric were such that everyone was wearing paper kimonos, and that they did that in Germany too, that they were wearing paper uniforms near the end of the war because the wool and everything else was so down. And a policeman came up to his Japanese friend and just slugged him in the street and said that, because he was not wearing the paper kimono, he was actually it was a hand-me-down from his father. And what were you doing, wearing a new cloth, outfit, basically. And he's like, no, it was, an antique. And totally okay within the Japanese culture at that time for a policeman to just hit somebody. And that happened, if that happened in America at the time, America now, for policemen to just walk around slugging people, whoa, we would have had issues, but that's how it was.
Yep.
But
it's just,
and
yeah.
that to say too, that, Catholic school by Catholic school, some of them I'm sure were much better than others, but it's still it's for the Indigenous children thing, it is another trial by social media. It's not there's a prosecution and defense and a judge. It's we've judged already and there's only prosecution. That
Right.
you have to bring up facts and figures. They just say bodies were found at a kid's school and no explanation given, and that's it. Like, hang on.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was people with bad intentions that are the reason for this. But just the whole, like, burning down all the churches and stuff, it's a deeper issue of not having respect for anything anymore, especially not God, because the church doesn't mean anything to you if you don't believe. And the whole everybody being such a victim, that's a lot of what the issue is with these things. It's they want to be victims. They want to have a reason to be angry at other people. They want to, I think that it's a lot of issues. Yeah, there's a total issue of the kids, but then the way that people are responding and things, it's just out of control.
I have to say that one of the things that really gets me about this is the sort of the bizarre equivalence of it, that these kids were found dead at schools. Therefore, Canada doesn't deserve to be a thing anymore. That you can never be proud of Canada. You can't be proud of your country. You can't be proud of your achievements. You can't be proud of, the freedom of people there now. That it is, one of the most, welcoming and accepting and everything else culture there is. That there was an actual race study done in England about racism. They actually sat it down, did a book, and put it out there. And what's the most free and equal places in the world? England, America, New Zealand, Canada. Those are the places that are study done least racist places in the world. And there's no level of look at how far we've come. That this was unacceptable, and we know it's unacceptable, and we won't do it, and we're learning it, and we'll never do it again. That's not the attitude. And not to mention, Canada, just the last couple of months, it's like, free speech and religious freedom has just like collapsed in Canada, which
it really has. Like the stuff they've been doing to pastors and acting like it's okay is out of control.
They've been arresting pastors in the street. They've been, you're not allowed, that the official charge was like, while you're trying to get people to gather. It's a church that there's, and then there's a combination of, that they're trying to expand, what's it called? That they're trying to do more for sort of controls on free speech on the internet, and yet pastors are now only allowed to be on the internet, and it's a province by province thing. But if you must have your sermons online, and let me tell you, if you say anything online, we're coming for you. At the same time that there's they arrested, that in Canada, so you have Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and then you have the Conservatives who are worse, and they're not standing up and doing anything at all. And then you have this one guy who's like, okay, I'm going to start my own political party and stand against it. So they arrested him, and he's out now, but he's Maxime Barnier of the People's Party of Canada, which is his new political party. He was out campaigning, and they're like, no, arrest you. And they're hauling him away like a criminal, and they're asking him like, oh, do you have any weapons on you? And he's like, just my words. And again, totally respectable guy, and it's horrible. And Section 13 is coming back, and that is there's something Mark Stein fought against for years, but it was restrictions on free speech in Canada. There is a constitutional, it's kind of an old one, but they brought it back in Canada, that you are not guaranteed the freedom to speak the truth if the truth is deemed harmful. It's different issues like this, and it's like, no, it's Canada. They're nice there. What bad could happen there? I'm like, holy crud.
Apparently a lot of bad can happen there.
In the post-millennial article that I quoted, that there was a pastor from Vietnam who, his church was being vandalized, and he's like, I escaped to Canada because I thought there'd be more religious freedom, and I don't think there is.
Yeah, isn't that sad? And the thing that is happening is people are giving up their freedoms. They're willingly giving them up because the government said, oh, we're gonna help you. And as Reagan said, the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. Mm-hmm. Because they have their own agenda, and they are not doing it for you. Soon, I'm from the government and I'm here to help is going to be a thing, because ours is going to be coming door to door.
Yeah, that's what, our Chucky doll press secretary said.
Did you just call her a Chucky doll?
Yeah, she's scary.
She is like a little tyrant, though, isn't she?
She is.
Just the way way she speaks to people is awful.
I know it's like kind of a nice little lilt to it, but also like.
But she's also awful.
Yeah. She's kind of like a person who would wear like a pink commie hat. I don't know. It's just like I can just imagine it now.
Yeah, so there's new talk going on though that they want to help make sure that everybody who can gets vaccinated by coming to our house.
Yeah, because so you already made the vaccination free and you made the test free and you bought up all the waves and everything from your phone ads to everything is people saying get the vaccine now.
And you've already offered college tuition and lottery, and I'm thinking that if people were already getting it,
tickets,
they would get it. Yeah. But I don't know. Something that is bothering me about all of this is that if they're coming to our house, then what else are they going to be looking for? I mean, they're not just going to be vaccinating us, right? I mean, are they going to ask me to show them my guns? Are they going to ask me to, I don't know. I don't know. What else would they want to know? Why are they coming to my house?
Yes. And also it's been pointed out that if they're coming to your house, that means that they have a list. And I thought of this debate. And first off, medical records, I think would be a little difficult for the government to compile. I mean, after all, the government doesn't have a right to our medical records. That should be private and ours. And that the vaccinations are at different places, that there's, if this person got theirs at Walmart and this person got theirs at Walgreens and this person went to their hospital, then how do you have a list of who had it or not? So I was wondering, and this is pure speculation. You can kind of, you can ignore this if you like. But there was a man a few months ago, and Tucker Carlson covered this, that he had said a disparaging comment about AOC, and the cops were at his door for kind of inciting violence, and he said, I didn't threaten her life or anything like it. I just tweeted something. Anyways, that Twitter had handed them his personal information because Twitter knows where you are. And I'm still on Instagram, even though they have the creepy tracking policy. So, one of these days our phone is going to be like the Ring of Power and Lord of the Rings, and we're going to have to destroy that thing, and Frodo's going to be like, no. But it's going to be a thing. Because like, even though my location is not on Instagram, my ads know where I am, believe me. So I'm wondering if it's, again, this is pure speculation, but is it easier for social media to have a list of who's pro-vaccine and who isn't than it is for the government to?
Well, I have a friend who's a slight conspiracy theorist, but often things they say is pretty true. And they told me that Facebook was, that the government had been developing something similar, but then Facebook came along and they didn't have to anymore. Right. And so I believe her.
Right. But and if you consider how many times, and again, this may sound crazy, but think of how many, all of Facebook and all of everything else, they have COVID warnings on everything. And they know when they have to put COVID alerts on things and when they have to say misinformation. So if you have a list of the people who you've had to put the misinformation notification thing on, then that would be a fairly good indicator.
That is true. So the whole vaccine thing, I saw the Attorney General of Kansas. I think it was Kansas. It may have been Kentucky. Sorry, people, but I can't remember. I know they're two really different states, but either Kansas or Kentucky said that one way to protect yourself from them coming is to put out a no trespassing sign. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a no trespassing sign on your property and then they come up to your house, then you have a legal leg to stand on. So I just thought that was interesting.
That is
I
interesting.
will probably find one, a small something I can put on my little front porch. And I
Right.
feel like a total like psycho because I'm contemplating that. But then again, I don't trust my government, which is also psycho. So I don't know.
Right.
I guess this is where we are.
And also, I mean, me personally, it's like it is none of the government's business. Thank you. You don't need to know my medical information. Have a nice day. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
But also, when looking forward to potential times of vast government overreach, and especially since Nancy Pelosi wants there to be Capitol Police, sort of that the Capitol Police is not just in the Capitol now, that it ought to be in places around the country. That she wants little offices set up because, you know, the FBI is under so much oversight right now.
Anne,
You can't just scream that.
you've taken my words away with this nonsense. But they want to defund the police.
That's right. No, but Republicans want to defund the police now. They never said that. It was always the Republicans who hate the police. Democrats love the police. That's why the Minneapolis City Council defunded and then freaked out and then refunded the police. Because police are bad.
I don't even have words for this shit. Like, for real.
Right.
I used your line. Today when I was being interviewed by Carrie, I used your line. Who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? Holy shit.
Right.
I saw the stuff. I heard them saying it.
Uh-huh.
Am I crazy now?
No, apparently we are. But I was just going to remind everyone, because of Solzhenitsyn wrote the Gulag Archipelago, and he said that people in Russia, there was a point where people were hauled away by the police. All right. And at that point, he said that if everybody in a neighborhood, in an apartment complex, if when they saw that happening, that they did not just cower in their own houses, but if they stood up and did something, that would have been different. If everybody had went up, hey, you know, if you had stopped people from being hauled off, not just thought, oh, well, I don't want it to be next, and anyways, they probably deserved it. And we have this now when, you know, when they are, you know, arresting people that we have this issue. You know, we talked about the two different scenarios where you have the Antifa rioters, and then we have the you know, we have the January 6th protesters, and taking away the people who were at the Capitol, you have thousands upon thousands of people who weren't hurting anybody, that they wanted their voices heard, they held a sign, they sang, a lot of them, that they were just concerned and they were there. And then you have the BLM riots where, you know, things were being broken. But when people are arrested now, that there's people pulling cameras and, you know, watching policemen and kind of getting in their face, and it's an issue. Well, on the other side, who's doing that and who isn't doing that, and who perhaps should be doing that? That we have, and this is happening around the world too, that we have, you know, different people in Australia, when the police start following them, they whip out their camera. That there was this past week, because Australian lockdowns are much worse, a man was drinking coffee and walking, and the police followed him, and they said, "What's your name?" And he said, I'm not committing a crime walking and drinking coffee at the same time. And they're like, you need to put your mask on, you need to do this. And eventually they arrested him because he was non-compliant. Okay, way out of line, but also he got video. And Andrew Breitbart said, you know, before he died, he said, everyone, you know, lift up your phone. You are the media now. That record it, tell other people, but don't just record it. If something bad is happening, stop it. Like, it is on you, not just to record, but to interfere. If,
right,
you know, that, and this is again, to bring up other things, the different marches in England, that the Sarah Everard vigil for the woman who was murdered by cops, that again, there is pro-Palestinian and pro-Antifa marches in England. Nobody says a word. Sarah Everard vigil, they're shoving women's faces in the pavement. Okay, it's two-tiered policing because one group are law-abiding and protesting, and you can kick them in the teeth and they'll take it, and one group won't. So there needs to be, you need some level of, you're not, again, talking to people who are generally peaceful and want an ordered society. You're not breaking windows, okay? And again, be peaceful, that, but you're peaceful already. But there needs to be a level of, hey, if you see something, say something, or better, hey, sir, what are you doing? Hey, hi, what's going
what's
on
happening here?
Yeah.
And I think that we are in the mindset of, do the right thing and good things will come to you and blah, blah. Well, sometimes doing the right thing is uncomfortable. Sometimes doing the right thing is, speaking up when somebody is getting attacked for something that and it's hard and it's awkward, but it's scary what's happening. And Biden is just freaking the whole thing is just not gonna.
Right.
You got to do something.
Right. And even I think I mentioned this last week, but I forget if I did, but there was an Australian man who was a news reporter, and the police came round to his house handing him a letter and saying that he could not be at the protest the next day. And he asked the right questions. He had it on camera, and he said, hey, what's in the letter? Oh, well, you'll have to read this. Oh, you're delivering a lot of letters to people at 8 at night. And there was like 4 or 5 officers there. And he asked, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Got it on camera because they're all wearing masks. And what time is it? And they said, and getting that sort of information, like, hey, you have to, kick up and make a fuss. And there's a lot of defeatism that, oh, nothing will happen. Oh, it doesn't matter if I say anything. Oh, we're lost already. And that just isn't the case. Okay, but that there's all of this happening. But again, to look at things historically, well, things are bad and they can never be fixed. Yeah, well, FDR confiscated all of the gold from a population and shot cows in fields and had them buried because it was thought that farmers would risk the lives of their own family to keep the cows alive. All right. And again, these things happened to the population and we've forgotten about them. But things got better from there. If the government was to confiscate everyone's gold now, there'd be a different dynamic. Okay, so right. There's a lot of what a free people will tolerate. I believe we've tolerated too much.
Everybody hits a breaking point, and I think that a lot of us have gotten there. And so now you are seeing more people standing up and speaking out and things, and we aren't going to tolerate some of that stuff anymore. But we need to start doing it more. That's the thing about the Democrats. Their people are always in lockstep. They always have the same agenda and the same, mantra or whatever it is. And we don't, because we value individualism and we don't expect everybody to agree with us. And that's where the difference lies, is that we don't necessarily, I guess we're not as organized to an extent.
The bad guys always get the Death Star first. We got to come back afterwards and get that sorted. But I was gonna say it's with the sort of, again, with the pushback, it's something that again, Mark Stein pointed out, but about that it's that we put a lot of emphasis on getting the right people in office, and which is good because the right people in office that we hope will do the right thing. and sometimes we elect squishes and they don't. But it really is the pressure from the people who gets things done. For example, Bernie Sanders in Vermont. Bernie Sanders, is not exactly what you'd call a gun-loving guy, but Vermont has some of the freest gun regulations of the states. You think that's because Socialist Bernie wants that? No, because the people, if you were to do something about those regulations, would be upset. That
Right.
the people of Vermont value this very highly, and they value other things less highly. So that's how you, like I said, you have Bernie Sanders, but you still have gun rights. That what the people want, will be respected. And also, it's got thinking of Finding Nemo this week. Yen seen in Finding Nemo when they're all in the net. And if the net's coming up and everyone's kind of freaked out and swimming around, then the net still goes up. Everyone swims down, net breaks. There's that.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a certain level of make it happen. There's a certain amount of the people with the more force of will are going to be successful. And that doesn't necessarily mean the largest group.
Yep. No, that's good. That's very true. Yeah, so things are looking kind of bleak, but get a no trespassing sign for your house, and start speaking out. I think that the consensus is that there's not that many of us. We're not going to do anything. We're kind of, we're going to just wait for elections and stuff, and we're not. We got to stop doing that.
Yeah. Also, I would say that part of this, like I said, is intimidation. That well, I'll just keep my head down. Yeah, they know who you are.
Yeah, they know what you're doing.
Yeah, they know which side you're on. Don't think and also the oh well, I'm just gonna keep my head down and hopefully see this through. It's like no, that you need to tell other people and share ideas, discuss ideas. Without conversation, you can't change minds. And even if you don't change minds, then at least you had the talk. At least you discussed it. At least people, know where you stand. Perhaps through you, they are sort of greeted by an idea that they may not have interacted with before.
But the making noise makes a difference too. I mean, they made noise in Arizona. They got an audit. I just heard that they approved an audit in Pennsylvania. Right. So, you know what I mean? People, I put up the Trump one hat and everybody's going, no, he did. It's been 6 months, blah, blah, blah. It could be 6 years. The numbers don't lie. And I believe that if everybody was audited, we would see that. And so this saying what you believe is a good thing because you might plant a seed somewhere. I forgot to mention something at the top of the show when we were talking about, personal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
My friends, it's been a request for, I don't know, a year since I've got the shirts that I sell them. They're going to go up in my store from now until the end of July. That's it. Get your order in by the end of July. They will all ship mid-August. So if you guys want to, limited edition.
Woohoo!
Right? So I just wanted to mention that because you're only going to have a couple of weeks to pick them up. In my Galilee Life store with the link in the comments.
Awesome.
Just FYI.
Yeah, we talked a bit about speaking up and everything else, but like we had with the 4th of July, and like there was with Canada Day, Dominion Day, that it's the idea of your celebration is not allowed. And we find this a lot in the sort of social justice knitting world. Even with Harry Potter, you're not allowed to enjoy that. You can't have a nice time. You must sit in your discomfort. So I think that's part of it's the idea, the often repeated idea of the happy warrior. you know, like, well, you're not allowed to enjoy that. You're not allowed to have fun. It's like, but I will.
I can.
You
I'm going
know,
to do it anyway.
you know, I would like to register my joy and my happiness and my love of country as official protests. And I don't care what Fauci says. You know, don't have too much fun. Oh, I will. Don't.
Yeah. Don't worry about anything that dude says anyway. But
I know, but it's like, oh, well, you're not supposed to have a nice time in a barbecue. It's like, I can't hear you over the sizzling of this hot, you know, burger as I flip it slowly. And like, I can't hear you. I'm having too much fun with these sparklers. Yeah. It's like, you're not supposed to have fun and joy. It's like, I'm sorry. You know,
I already got it.
too bad. I'm belting patriotic tunes today because that's just how it be.
Yep. Exactly.
You know, I have the grand old flag on repeat. But anyways, so yeah, I think that just that's another important thing of, you know, we have that there's good things and there's bad things, and there's a lot of things to love about our country still. And just
Yep.
and also the joy of that propagates. Like, America's awesome. Keep telling people. Great big beautiful
Yep.
tomorrow. Shine at the end of every day, said the Sherman brothers. Sorry, I'll stop being
So
beautiful.
keep being happy, keep speaking out, and keep watching us. We'll be back again next week. I think we might have a guest.
Ooh.
It's a surprise to even Anne. So there you go.
Exactly.
And make sure you comment, like, subscribe. We've been getting some new followers, and I think it's because more of our current followers are engaging. So thank you.
Mhm.
We want to spread the conservative knitting love everywhere.
That's right. I said we are on YouTube and Rumble. So if you're watching us on YouTube now, make sure to follow on Rumble, you know, just in case. Yep. Galilee Life. Your shop is on Galilee Life. I'm also there. Etsy, Lovecraft, both on Instagram, you know, so they can track us.
Yep.
We can be found around the web.
I'm on Facebook. Yeah, find us. Type in our names. You'll find us if we're there. Thanks for joining us. Keep knitting. Can't wait to see your Trump 1 hats. Remember, making it a liberal angry. Knit a Trump 1 hat. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week. Bye.